Sacrificing my happiness was just expected. But I had other plans. My husband's family announced, "You'll move in and take care of us. It's your responsibility." My husband nodded in agreement. The next day, they came home to find my suitcases packed and a plane ticket, with only my name on it. Hi everyone, this is a long story. It's real and I still can't believe it all happened. I 45F was married to Robert, 48M for just over 20 years. We lived in Savannah, Georgia. We met in college, fell in love, the classic story. Got married young. I gave up a lot to be with him, but I did it willingly at the time. I thought that's what love meant, you give, and you keep giving. Robert came from a very traditional Southern family. Old money, old views, the kind of people who treat outdated gender roles as charming quirks rather than red flags. His parents, Harold, 76, and Margaret, 73, were exactly what you'd expect. She wore pearls to the grocery store. He still read the newspaper cover to cover with a magnifying glass like it was 19. From the beginning they weren't exactly welcoming. I came from a working-class family, raised in rural Florida. I was ambitious. I wanted to be a graphic designer. I dreamed of moving to New York or Chicago and working with big brands. But once I married Robert, everything changed. They never said "you're not good enough" out loud. They just made it clear in 100 small ways. Margaret once smiled, patted my hand and said, "You're such a helpful girl, just like you should be." At first I brushed it off. I was young and in love. I thought they'd come around. They didn't. And Robert, he never stood up for me. Not once. He'd say things like, "Just ignore them," or "That's just how they are." Fast forward a few years, we had 2 kids. I put my design career on hold to raise them. Robert worked long hours in real estate, so I handled everything else. Parenting, cooking, cleaning, hosting. I became the family's unpaid full-time assistant. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, I organized it all. Margaret would criticize the stuffing while eating it. Harold would jokingly call me the maid with perks. They laughed. Robert laughed with them. When I brought it up in private, he told me I was being too sensitive, that they were just kidding, that they loved me in their own way. Years went by. The kids grew up. I slowly started getting back into design, online classes, freelance work. It felt amazing, like I was reclaiming a part of myself. Then last year, everything changed. Harold had a minor fall, nothing serious, but it shook them. Margaret called a family meeting, meaning me, Robert, our college-aged kids and them. We all sat in their overly decorated living room, full of old potpourri and tension. Margaret started with, "We've made a decision." I thought maybe they were moving to assisted living, or downsize, something practical. Nope. She looked directly at me and said, "You'll move in and take care of us. It's your duty." That's how families do it. Just like that. Like I was being handed a list of chores. I looked at Robert. He said nothing. I stared at him. He nodded, like it was already decided. He said, "They're getting older. It's the right thing to do. You're good at this stuff anyway." I swear, I couldn't breathe for a moment. I felt like I'd just been slapped. I said, "Wait. When did we decide this?" Margaret waved her hand like I was interrupting. "This is what families do. We took care of our parents, now it's your turn." Robert added, "We'll convert the guest room. It'll be fine." I asked, "So I'm just supposed to move in with your parents and care for them full time?" Margaret said, "Well, they're not getting any younger. It's not forever." I sat there in shock while they discussed the logistics. As if I wasn't even in the room. They were already talking about which of my things I could bring, how the kitchen could be rearranged, which car we should sell. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay there next to Robert, staring at the ceiling. 20 years of giving, sacrificing, swallowing my pride, biting my tongue. And just when I thought maybe I could finally have a life of my own. But there was no discussion, no choice, just commands. Like I was staff, not family. Somewhere in the middle of the night, something inside me shifted. It didn't break, it didn't snap, it simply clicked. I realized I couldn't do this anymore. Not for another year, another month, not even another day. So I got up. Quietly, I walked to the computer and booked a one-way flight to Paris. It was spontaneous, I know. but it was a city I had dreamed of visiting since I was 16. I printed the ticket. I packed my bags. No dramatic exit. I simply folded my clothes, gathered the essentials, and zipped up my suitcase. The next morning, they came home from church. I'd said I wasn't feeling well, and stayed behind. When they walked in, I was sitting in the living room, suitcase beside me, plane ticket in hand. Robert walked in first and froze. Margaret followed, asking, "What's this?" I replied, "I'm leaving." Robert, "What?" Me, "I'm not moving in. I'm not giving up what's left of my life to take care of others full time. I've already given enough." Margaret, "You're being ridiculous." Me, "Maybe. But I'm still going." Robert, "You're just going to walk away." Me, "No, I'm finally choosing myself." He tried to guilt me, said I was abandoning the family, that this wasn't how a committed partner behaved. But I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I stood up, wheeled my suitcase to the door and said, "Find someone else to take on the role you assigned me. I'm done being the unpaid help." I got into a cab and left. That's where I'll pause for now. There's more, a lot more, but this is already long. I'll post an update soon. Let's just say, the aftermath was intense. So yes, I left. I flew to Paris. I didn't cry on the plane. I just stared out the window, wondering how I stayed silent for so long. 20 years of shrinking myself to fit someone else's version of a wife. Now I was 45, alone on a flight to a country where I didn't speak the language, with nothing but a carry-on and a passport, and I felt more alive than I had in decades. I rented a tiny Airbnb in Montreuil, just a bed, a window, and a small desk, the kind of place you fantasize about at 16, reading books under the covers by flashlight. I started walking everywhere, drinking coffee I didn't quite know how to order, sitting in parks, watching people laugh and talk like they knew something I didn't. I felt like a ghost slowly waking up in someone else's life. Back home, everything exploded. The first email came the next day. Subject, "You've lost your mind." From Rob, just a long paragraph accusing me of being dramatic, selfish, and destroying our family. He said I'd embarrassed him, humiliated him in front of his parents. He told people at church I'd had a small breakdown, said they were all praying for me. I didn't The second email was from Margaret. Subject, "Ungrateful." She called me unstable, said this was what happens when women lack structure, accused me of abandoning my children. They're both in college, by the way. She said if I didn't return soon she'd reconsider letting me back into the family. I laughed. Out loud. In the middle of a Paris cafe. Like it was a job offer with an expiration date. Then came the third message. Subject, "You won't get away with this." Not from Robert or Margaret, but from Diane, Robert's younger sister. She never liked me. Always called me the artsy one. Like it was an insult. She said the family had spoken to a lawyer. They were claiming abandonment, discussing divorce, threatening to freeze accounts. They accused me of misusing joint funds by flying to Paris. That's when it hit me. They were serious. I checked our shared accounts. Robert had already removed my name. The credit card I used to book the Airbnb was declined the next day. Thankfully I had a small savings account in my name. Not much, but something. I hadn't worked full-time in years. I'd poured everything into the family, while Robert earned the real income. And now I was cut off. That's when I got scared. I reached out to an old college friend, Rach. She had moved to London years ago, and started a small design agency. We hadn't spoken in ages, but on a whim I messaged her. She replied in 10 minutes. She offered me freelance work that same day. Said she'd been following my design sketches on Instagram for years, and always wondered why I disappeared from the scene. I told her why. She said, "Forget him. Let's get you back on your feet." That was the first time I cried. Since leaving, work started to pick up. Every day I'd walk to a cafe, open my laptop, and lose myself in fonts, colors and clean lines. I was doing it again, building something that was mine. Back in Savannah, things got worse. Robert filed for divorce. Not just any divorce. He went after everything. He claimed I abandoned the marriage, said I was mentally unstable. He wanted the house, the savings, the retirement fund. Even tried to convince the kids to take his side. Our daughter Ava called me crying, said Grandpa Harold told her I was unwell, that I wasn't coming back, that I'd become selfish, even dangerous. I told her, "That's not true, sweetheart. I just couldn't do it anymore." She said, I know, Mom. I see it now. I'm just sorry it took this long. My son was quieter. He didn't say much, but he messaged me every week just to check in. I think he's still processing everything. I don't blame him. Then came the twist I never saw coming. I was sitting at my favorite cafe in Paris, sketching a logo for a yoga studio, when I got an email at 9:30 from a name I hadn't seen in 15 years. Emily. Not that Emily. Another one. Relax. She's not the antagonist here. She was Robert's ex. The one before me. She said she'd seen what I was going through on social media. A mutual friend had shared something about the wife who ran off to Paris, and she said she had something to tell me. We ended up on a call that night. She told me Robert had done this before. Not the Paris part, but the emotional manipulation, the controlling behavior, the slow unraveling. When she left him, he tried to damage her reputation, told people she was unfaithful, unstable, tried to make himself the victim. None of it was true. She moved out quietly, went west, rebuilt her life. She's now married with kids, and runs a ceramic studio. She told me she'd always felt guilty for not warning me. You're not crazy, she said. He just knows how to make you feel like you are. That call changed something in me. Because it wasn't just me, it was a pattern, a script he used, always casting himself as the wronged party when women left. I wasn't going to play along. The next day I called a lawyer, a French one, who then referred me to a US firm experienced in international divorce. It was expensive, yes, but Rachel, bless her, offered to loan me money until I could stand on my own. I started fighting back, sent formal notices, froze what remained of our joint accounts, filed petitions to protect my rights, gathered every email, message and voicemail from the last few months, built a timeline, created a paper trail. I stopped being the frightened wife hiding in Paris, and became someone else. I'm not sure what to call her yet, but she's stronger, colder, wiser, maybe, definitely different. Just when I thought I'd seen the worst, another twist came. Robert showed up in Paris. No warning. He just appeared at a cafe I had posted about on Instagram, walked in like he owned the place, like I still belonged to him. I came to bring you home, he said, and I replied, this is home now. When Robert walked into that cafe, it felt like the air disappeared. He looked smug, like he expected me to collapse at the sight of him, like this was all just a dramatic tantrum, and now he was here to take the confused little wife back. I stood up slowly. My heart was pounding, but I didn't let it show. What are you doing here? I asked. I came to fix this, he said. Let's go back. You've made your point. I blinked. My point? He sat across from me like it was just brunch. You needed space. I get it, but it's time to come home. The kids are upset. Mom's falling apart. And me, I've been humiliated. I wanted to scream, but instead I leaned forward and said, you didn't come to fix anything. You came to regain control, just like always. His jaw tight. You've been influenced, he said, by your designer friends. That one from college. Her name is Rachel, I said. And she's the reason I'm eating today. He scoffed. This is ridiculous. You think you're some artsy runaway in a foreign country? That's not who you are. And that's when it hit me. He never knew who I was. Not really. I had buried myself so deeply trying to be what he wanted. I had forgotten too. But Paris had begun to peel back the layers. I looked him in the eyes and said, I don't ever want to be who I was with you again. He went quiet, cold. I gave you 20 years, he said. I built a life for us, a family. And now you're throwing it all away for a cafe and a laptop. No, I said. I'm throwing you away. The rest, I'm finally keeping. Then he said something that shook me. If you don't come home, I'll take the house, the money, and make sure you don't see the kids again. I froze. It was a threat, a serious one, and I feared he'd already started the process. But he wasn't done. I'll tell everyone you were having an affair. That's why you left, isn't it? I laughed. Actually laughed. That's what you're going with? An affair. His voice dropped. People believe what they're told, especially when the other person isn't around to speak for themselves. I stood up, loud enough for the whole cafe to hear. I said, get out of my life, Robert. I'm not yours to manage anymore. He left. But the storm didn't. The next few weeks were chaos. Legal chaos. Robert did try to go after custody, the assets, everything. His lawyers filed every motion they could, accused me of abandoning the family, claimed I was unstable, living irresponsibly in a foreign country, and therefore unfit. But here's the twist. Remember Diane, his sister? She switched sides. I don't know what triggered it. Maybe Margaret crossed a line. Maybe Diane had her own moment of clarity. But she called me, said I've been blind. You were never the problem. She sent me screenshots, messages between Robert and Margaret, mocking me, bragging about their legal strategy, even jokes about shipping me back. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, and suddenly, the tone in court shifted. The house, partially in my name, the savings, some of it traced to inheritance from my parents. The narrative about me being unstable undermined by years of text messages documenting emotional harm and pressure. But the biggest twist. My daughter flew to Paris, alone. Ava showed up at my door with just a carry-on and tears in her eyes. She said she couldn't take it anymore. She told me Margaret had said, "You'll end up just like your mother if you don't learn to stay quiet." And Ava said, "If being like you means finally having a backbone, then good." We hugged for 20 minutes. Then I made us tea and we sat on the floor talking like friends. Now she's staying with me temporarily. She's finishing her college classes online. I got her a sketchbook, and she's been drawing every day. She says she feels free here, says it's quiet in a way. Savannah never was. And Robert, he's unraveling. He called Ava screaming, accusing her of choosing me over the family. She hung up on him. I know he's not done yet. Men like him never leave quietly. But this time, I have lawyers. I have documentation. I have my daughter. And most importantly, I have me. And I'm not going back. Not ever. There's more coming. A bigger plan I haven't shared yet. Something Robert doesn't know I'm working on. Let's just say, he's not the only one who knows how to play dirty. It all came to a head 4 months after I left. I'd rebuilt a decent routine in Paris. I had freelance clients, a tiny but steady income. Ava and I were getting closer than we'd ever been. We cooked together, worked beside each other, sometimes just sat in silence, watching the city go by from the apartment window. She was sketching again. Her professors back home gave her credit for independent study. And me, I felt like I'd finally started breathing again. Then came the gala, an event for international design freelancers. Rachel's company was one of the sponsors. She insisted I come, said it would be good for networking. Ava helped me get ready. I wore a sleek black jumpsuit I'd been saving for something special. It wasn't fancy, but I felt strong in it, like armor. The event was held in a restored theater near the sign. Glass ceiling, soft lights, quiet jazz. I mingled, met people I admired, even got a couple of project offers on the spot. For the first time in forever, I felt like I belonged. Then I saw him, Robert, standing near the bar in a charcoal suit, like a storm waiting to happen. My stomach dropped. Ava noticed right away and grabbed my hand. "Mom, do you want to leave?" But no, not this time. I wasn't going to keep running. He walked over slowly, like this was some accidental run, like we hadn't once shared a bed for 20 years. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice sharp. He smiled like a snake. "Didn't think you'd be here. I was invited by a contact from the States." Liar. I knew he'd followed the breadcrumb trail from Rachel's company. He wasn't just invited. He was hunting. He leaned in. "You've made a fool of me long enough. You want to be seen like this? Let's be seen." Before I could stop him, he raised his glass and tapped it with a spoon. "Excuse me, everyone," he said loudly. "I'd like to say a few words about the woman of the hour, my runaway wife." The music stopped. People turned. I froze. He smiled like this was charming. "She's been running from her responsibilities for months now. Left her family behind. Abandoned 2 children. All for some European fantasy. Freedom, maybe. But let's not forget. She left a husband, who paid for everything she has." I felt the blood drain from my face. He turned to the crowd. "She wants to be seen as a strong woman. But let me tell you, strength doesn't mean betrayal." Then he looked at me. "You owe me. I gave you a life. A home. Children." I opened my mouth but someone beat me to it. "Ava." She stepped forward, voice shaking. "You didn't give her anything. She gave up everything for you." People stared. But she kept going. She cooked, cleaned, raised me and my brother, hosted every family event, worked quietly in the background, while you smiled and took the credit. And when she finally asked for something for herself, you called it betrayal. He laughed. "Sweetheart, you're young. You don't understand." "I understand more than you think," she snapped.
I heard what Grandpa said about her, what Grandma called her. I stayed quiet for years, pretending it was normal. Then she turned to the crowd. You want to know who she is? She's the woman who saved me, who showed me I didn't have to become a doormat to be loved. Robert's face turned red. You ungrateful little brat. She poisoned you against me. She opened my eyes. Ava said. You did the rest yourself. That's when Rachel stepped in. She walked to the center of the group and said calmly, but firmly, we don't tolerate abuse in our community. You can leave, or we'll escort you out. Security was already moving. Robert's voice rose. Desperate now. This isn't over. You'll come crawling back, both of you.
No, Robert, I said quietly. I'm not crawling anywhere anymore. He was removed. The music started again, but the night had changed. People whispered. Some came over to offer support. Others just nodded silently. Respectful. Ava and I stood by the balcony afterward, our hands cold from the adrenaline. Are you okay? I asked. She nodded. I'm proud of you. We didn't speak much after we got home, just held hands until we fell asleep. Robert went silent. After the gala, his lawyer contacted mine. A clean split. No more fights. No more drama. I signed the papers without hesitation. The kids chose to spend holidays with me. Even my son eventually came to Paris. Stayed a month. We talked late into the nights. He said he didn't want to be like his father. I told him he didn't have to be. Margaret and Harold sent me a handwritten letter. No apology, just bitter words and a passive-aggressive Bible verse about duty. I didn't reply. But Diane? She called again. Said she'd cut contact with them too. Said they turned on her the moment she defended me. She sounded tired, but free. We promised to keep in touch. Some people ask me if I regret it. Regret 20 years of sacrifice. Of being invisible. Yes. I regret losing myself for so long. But do I regret leaving? Not for a single sec. Because I learned that duty, when demanded instead of earned, is just a leash. Love without respect is just control in costume. And silence doesn't keep peace. It just buries the truth, until it explodes. I don't know what the future holds. I'm not naive anymore. Life is messy. There will be lonely days. But now when I wake up, the first thing I feel isn't dread. It's freedom. And for now, that's enough.